Alrighty, well, thanks everyone for coming. It's been a while since we've done a dev call specifically. We did the roadmap call last time, and I think the roadmap call more or less updated where we were development-wise anyway. That was the point. So I don't think there's been too much happening, but the biggest update right now is the fact that we now have release candidates out for 2.2. So we consider this one a major update, and we do so because it introduces two new features into the application that are pretty significant, we think. So the first is cryptocurrency listings. And the way cryptocurrency listings work is it's a new listing type, right? There's 3 listing types currently at OpenBazaar, physical goods, digital goods, and services. And now crypto listings is the 4th type of listing. And at the moment, what that lets you do is select, as a vendor, select from, I think there's 44 different cryptocurrencies that we have a price for that you're able to list for sale. And then put a quantity, that's your inventory, as to how much of that you are willing to sell. And then, of course, post a listing to your store, just like any other listing. And then buyers are able to purchase a certain quantity up to the amount of the inventory that you had set from you at market price. So currently, basically, the moment that the buyer chooses to put in the quantity they want and clicks buy, it locks in that market price at the moment of whatever cryptocurrency they're buying. They obviously settle currency in whatever one you accept, which right now is either Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, or Zcash. And then it's manually settled from that point. So the vendor, when the buyer makes a purchase, they put in a cryptocurrency address where they want to receive the coins, and then the vendor, it's on them to send the coins to that address and then mark it fulfilled. And then obviously the rest of the process goes just as any other order would normally. Unless you know the vendor very well, we obviously recommend using moderated payments, preferably with a verified moderator, just like any other big purchase, or purchase from people you don't trust. And I think that's more or less the general, what cryptocurrency listings generally look like. Now, we're really interested in trying to sort of rapidly iterate this particular feature because we know that it's very bare bones and that there are exchanges out there and decentralized exchanges and other services like Shapeshift that do kind of similar things. So we're curious where it's most useful to users and what things they want to see. But we wanted to get it out there and not, take months and months and months developing it. So it's kind of bare bones now, but we're interested to see where it goes from here. That's cryptocurrency listings. And the second big feature that's introduced in 2.2 is Optin Analytics. So right now, because OpenBazaar is built to respect privacy, the development team can't really look into the network and know much about how individuals are using the software. There's some sort of proxy data we can get from looking at the network broadly speaking, but we're always curious to know how each individual is using it and where their pain points are and what problems they're having. And we're pretty much 100% reliant on self-reporting, people telling us those things, which we always appreciate when people do that, but it's not very dependable. So we have included an Optin Analytics package. I'm forgetting the name of the service actually now, Josh, or others who worked on it.
Countly.
Countly, thank you, Josh. Yeah, through Countly. Of course, it's all open source and whatnot. And what you'll notice from the end user's perspective is the first time that you run the new release, it will basically give you a pop-up when you start it up that asks if you want to opt in or not. And what it does is it goes through and lists all the data that you would be sharing if you choose to opt in. I don't remember it all offhand, but I mean, it's there in that pop-up. It's there in the code. So, we have no idea how many people will be willing to do that. But obviously, the more people that are willing to do that, the better from our perspective. And of course, we chose data that was, meant to be non-identifying naturally. So hopefully, it doesn't compromise the identity, or shouldn't compromise the identity of the user, and just stuff that helps us, like error messages, what they're doing in the app, generally speaking. So those are the two biggest things that happened. I know there are quite a few bug fixes and optimizations. I know there's a couple new languages added. I forget off the top of my head what those are. Like Portuguese and Swedish or something. I don't know. I should have the release notes in front of me.
It was Ukrainian, Norwegian, and Polish, I believe.
Okay, Norwegian. I knew there was some Scandinavian language in there. All right, thanks, Josh. Yeah, and I think that's about it. So where we're at in terms of development is, I think we're now on release candidates 2 or 3. Brian, who does the building of the release candidates, is out of town right now, so he's been trying to manage that while he's away. But I think we're in pretty good shape on this release candidate. One of the big changes that needed to happen for cryptocurrency listings is changing how the inventory setup worked, which kind of touched a lot of things, and so we found a few bugs with that, and so that's why we're on RC3 now. I think the biggest thing people need to know about this update is that folks will need to update as soon as possible, because it's not, my understanding is it's not fully compatible with older versions of the software because of that. I think it's because of the inventory change.
It's mostly because of cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
Things should still work. The major issue is that if you see if you're using an old client and you run across a crypto listing in search, or you try to open a store or listing page that has cryptocurrency, it will fail to load and you won't be able to see anything.
So yeah, so there you go. It'll choke on the new cryptocurrency listings, not knowing what it's looking at.
Right.
So for anyone who wants to participate in that, and obviously we hope people do, the update is necessary. All right, OB1 team, is there anything that I've missed that we've been working on recently that's worth noting?
I mean, no, those are the two major updates. The rest are kind of small optimizations and bug fixes. You should maybe note that the new inventory work will eventually be extended to all listings, not just cryptocurrencies, which will allow people to see at least our latest known inventory for listings when they're offline before they purchase it. We're currently in the existing release, you can't do that, and it is possible to buy more of something than actually is available.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I think it's also worth mentioning browse only too.
Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Jen. So as we laid out in the roadmap, our highest priority is getting OpenBazaar onto other platforms other than desktop, such as web and mobile. And on the web side, we have been working on a browse-only version. If you remember, that was our first phase, the first step, basically. And I don't have the most recent, like the past couple days, because like I said, Brian's been sort of out. I haven't been following it as closely, but it's practically ready for public release. I'm pretty confident saying that. I think right now it's at well, I don't know if it's ready for public consumption or not, but Brian's been posting it on Twitter, so I guess I guess it is. You can check it out at beta.openbazaar.org. Oh, I'm sorry, beta.openbazaar.com. Let me make sure that that's accurate. Yes, so beta.openbazaar.com. That basically is going to show you what openbazaar.com will look like once it's released. So this is read only. This is the browse only. So all this is doing is pulling information from gateway nodes and presenting them through your browser. The search is done through OB1 by default, and then we link off to Blockbooth and BazaarDog in the same sort of search area that is in the client on the top left there. And I don't think there's anything more to say about that other than it's going to be released pretty dang soon. I think we intended to release it when cryptocurrency listings were published as well. I think that was the plan. I don't know if that's changed or not, but as I said, it's very close to release. And I'll answer your question, Chris, in a second. But the next phase, which is sort of that's what we've done. Now where are we going? Is the buy only web version, and that's kind of what we're starting on right now. Like pretty much browse only is done. The new features in desktop are done. There are some new features we still want to get on, but browse only is really what we're going to be hitting hard now. And we've only just started to figure out how we're going to tackle that, so we don't really have much to put forward yet on that. So Chris asked if we could touch on gateway nodes and how they're different from regular ones, how they're used in the web and the view only version. I'm not the best one to answer that. Perhaps Mike, you can jump in. Chris Pacia certainly would be able to explain better than I can.
Sure. So the gateway essentially is just running our API, the server API, and exposing it to the internet for anyone to use. So if you use, you can look at our code for the website and see that it's talking to gateway.ob1.io, and it has some endpoints that your local nodes also expose, and they are effectively the same thing that the UI is using to talk to. So if you need to use the server in a way with a separate UI, you're effectively talking to the gateway of the server, and the gateway is just exposing the OpenBazaar API for that.
Okay, I guess what I was wondering is, so the view-only web version is just talking to a gateway, one gateway, right? It's not like crawling and finding all the gateway nodes on the network and pulling data from that. Those.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
For today, it's pointing to gateway.ob1.io, but in the beta site, I recall seeing a configuration setting that allows you to change that. So if you want to point it at your own gateway, you could totally do that.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Harry, to answer your question about GraphQL, no, we don't have any plans for that at the moment. Our API is still in high volatility, so until we get some idea as far as where we want it to land, we're not making any major architectural changes like that. I understand that GraphQL helps a lot with highly volatile APIs, but the infrastructure overhaul is going to be a high, tall order. I have considered it, but we're not thinking about it seriously at this point.
All right, good questions. So I think that's it from the OB1 perspective. So if anyone wants to ask further questions or let us know where they're at with their projects, please do so. I'm not familiar with Harry or Vic offhand, so if you guys want to let us know sort of what you're working on and where your interests are. Please do so in the chat or with audio, but no compulsion. It's fine to just hang out and listen as well.
I just want to give a shout out to you guys. Great work on the view only. I think this is going to be a really important part of onboarding process. People can just open up in a web browser and find something they're interested in. Then that's the motivation they need to download the app, and that's going to be great. Also, this is Chris Troutner, by the way. For those who aren't familiar, I'm working on a project called P2PVPS.org that builds on top of OpenBazaar. I think the OB1 team has seen this, but just wanted to put out there, I created a project called Star for BCH, which allows a person to receive 10 cents or whatever, some amount of Bitcoin Cash in exchange for starring a project on GitHub. And I created it because it's part of my onboarding process for my project. I'm trying to attract people who may or may not be familiar with OpenBazaar, may or may not be familiar with cryptocurrency. So I've got to overcome this hurdle of getting them cryptocurrency so that they can try out my product. And so if anybody wants more information on that or are curious on it, I encourage you to contact me. I'm happy to help people set it up if they're interested in incorporating it with their project. I think it's kind of a pretty common use case, getting people who are unfamiliar with cryptocurrency, getting them a small amount to use and try. And almost everybody in the open source world has a GitHub project. So it's a really easy way to give them it sort of gamifies the whole thing of like, start my project and I'll send you this Bitcoin Cash, and then we can move on to the next step of this onboarding process. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I hadn't actually heard about that. So, go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, can I go next? Okay, so I'm a software engineer at a consulting company called Level. I've been in crypto space since last year. I was looking for a project that I could contribute, and OpenBazaar came up in my mind, so I decided to apply for it. I applied for the volunteering. I do mostly front-end work and React, GraphQL related stuff. And I'm also a part of Litecoin Foundation, and I do some React work for them as well. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, that's great. Well, I'm glad to have you looking at the project. I don't know if you're part of our Slack group yet or not, or if you already talked to the development team. But if not, I highly recommend joining. And I don't think currently, Josh, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think currently we're using React for anything, but one of our devs has been a React evangelist and trying to get us to use that for some of the projects we're working on in the near future. So,
well, we do use React Native for one of the mobile repos, but that's a private repo, not a public one. And we are certainly planning to move to React in the reasonably near future.
Yeah, for sure.
It's more a case of we're waiting for a project where to be appropriate, rather than rewriting the entire client again.
Yeah, so if you're not yet in the Slack, like I said, definitely join up, and we can work with you to figure out places where, if you're willing to contribute on what we already have, or check out the GitHub issues on the desktop side. There's certainly plenty of work to be done. So
sure,
great to see you. All right. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
This is Chris Troutner again. Hey, Josh, do you need any clarification on the GitHub issue I filed about the bundled client hanging when I switch back and forth between a local server and a remote server? Does that all make sense to you?
Yeah, I think I understand what it is you're seeing. We just haven't had a chance to test it and replicate it yet.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't feel like it's a corner case. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but yeah, okay. I just want to make sure.
The bundled app is intended to be used with bundled servers.
Right.
So while it's still entirely possible to use it with remote servers, it's a little bit outside the use case for that app. The intent is if you're using remote servers, you should be using either installed from source client or the client only installer.
Okay, that's what I should be doing. Okay, it's just so convenient to install the bundle, but I see your point. Like, okay, I should just install the client from source, and I wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah, well, I assume you wouldn't. If you do, then that's important to know.
Okay.
I mean, it's still on our list of things to fix, but so are a lot of other things.
Right.
So just haven't gotten to it yet.
Right, Roger.
So I noticed a few comments in the chat talking about basically about documentation, and Bazaar Dog suggested that you take the conversation into Slack so that it's not lost just on this server chat, which sounds like a really good idea. It's something we've been talking a lot about recently, how to make sure we do a better job of getting documentation up to date and having it in the first place. So I highly recommend everyone to get this going in the Slack to make sure that it isn't lost. Also, Daniel,
I would like to add that we are working on doing that documentation. We just haven't completed it nor figured out exactly what the best way to share it with the public is.
Yeah, and that's something that I would encourage folks to do, which is give us suggestions for other projects or other documentation tools that you have used in the past or you have seen that seem to work really well. Because that's kind of a point we're at now, which is we have it spread across a lot of different places and over time as well, because this project's over 4 years old now. So we really it would be really helpful to have one place to put it and make sure it stays maintained. So if you guys have thoughts on that, then please contribute. All right. Anything else anyone would like to contribute? All right, sounds like no. So part of the reason for doing Big Blue Button is that it allows you to save the chat messages. It allows you to record the audio and video and slides, and then we can just kind of maintain these somewhere for posterity's sake. We are using the HTML5 client instead of the original one, which uses Flash. So it means that it's not currently able to save the audio and video. So that's something that we are just kind of doing manually. But I will make sure that this chat does get saved and is publicly accessible. And then moving forward, as they finish building the HTML5 client, we'll be able to save everything else just in the platform itself. And I think that's it for this dev call. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. Please continue the conversation in the Slack, and we'll see you all a couple weeks from now.